Hey folks, welcome to the channel. In today's Triple T Tuesday, we're going to talk about getting started in knife making. And for those of you that are new to this series, Triple T is tools, tips, and talk. And this is a session where I just kind of riff with the camera, talk about some topics and associated tips and tools. So like I said, in today's episode, we're going to talk about getting started. And I'm assuming you're past the hand files and angle grinder stage. You want to go to the next level in knife making. And really that means, to me, it means a forge and a grinder. So those are the topics we're going to talk about. So first thing, how I got started and what I did in my tool progression. The very first thing I bought, believe it or not, was a stick welder. And I'm a firm believer in one of the first things you should learn how to do is weld. You're going to use that skill throughout knife making. You need to know how to stick metal together. And that leads you to being able to build your own tools. So the first thing I did is I bought a stick welder. It was like 140 bucks on Amazon, and watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos and taught myself how to stick weld. So that served me so hugely, because as soon as I did that, then I built a forge. And building a forge helped me progress in both knife making, but also in my confidence. My confidence to know that, hey, I could build things like this. Because I progressed past the forge to building my 2x72 and then my hydraulic press, which I'll have another series on in the future. So let's talk about the forge first and take you through that, what you need to do to build a forge, and then we'll go on to the 2x72. So here's my forge. This is built from a air pressure tank from an air compressor. I actually bought this new online. I think it cost me $27. I just didn't have access to one, so I bought one new. Then I used an angle grinder, cut this part out of it so that I could get better access to the inside, cut a 4-inch door. I have a little 3x3 opening in the back in case I have long blades. And then the welding started. I welded this piece on so I could open the door. I welded legs on so it would sit flat and wouldn't roll. And honestly, the door part, I never open this door. The only time I ever open this door is when I'm redoing the inside of the forge, which I've done twice already. Because if you don't know, forge welding and using a lot of flux will eat the bottom of your forge. But really easy to make. And there's a little latch on this side. So that's the container of the forge. The inside is Kaowool. Okay, this is a piece of Kaowool. Okay, it's been a little compressed, but this is 2-inch thick Kaowool. This is a real high heat blanket that wraps all the way around. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in there, so I keep it in a closed box. That's extra stuff. You put the Kaowool on the inside, and then you have to buy this rigidizer. And this rigidizer is almost like liquid glass. You spray it on, it hardens like glass over the Kaowool. And then you put refractory cement, which is what the hard stuff is here. You peanut butter that on over top of the rigidizer. Okay, I always use fire brick. You can't really see them, but the bottom is flat because there's fire brick sitting on the Kaowool. And that just gives you a nice flat surface. And I don't care if it eats through the fire brick. And when I want to redo the forge, I usually just smash up the fire brick, slide new ones in there, and then fill the gaps with more refractory. You really want some kind of flat surface here. I always use fire brick. These things decay after a while, but use fire brick because you're always keeping this closed. Here's the other end. I guess it's only a 2.5 by 2.5 square. When I first built this forge, it was a single burner. I just found I wasn't getting the heat that I wanted, and I made a homemade burner here. And that worked well for the first year I think I had this. Then I upgraded to these stainless steel burners here. When I first put them in, I had them too far apart. Your burner should be about 4 inches apart. These were a little too far apart and I was getting a cold spot in the middle, which is why I moved them over here. You really want them at an angle anyway. So I like these burners. They're plenty of power. So let's talk about burners. There's really 3 styles of burner. These are Venturis, meaning the air will get sucked into the top, and the air getting drawn into this is now being forced down the tube through Venturi, means like a spinning effect. So when the actual igniter, the flame is right there, when that lights, it's sucking air into the pipe, and you'll hear these roar like jet engines. So they work really well, and you can adjust these. I think I've got these screwed down right now, but you can adjust these, slide up and down, and there's more holes underneath to give you more air. The downside of Venturis is they use a lot of gas. When I'm forge welding, I have this set about 20-25 PSI. This thing will go through a propane cylinder in an hour or 2. When I'm not forge welding, then I'll put this up a little bit and it's a little better. But they do use a lot of gas. The second option you have is to go with kind of a straight pipe, still kind of flared at the end, but a straight pipe, and then an actual air blower. And that blows air into it. You don't need as much gas to start the Venturi effect. So it's much better on gas if you have forced to air. My next forge will be forced to air. And then the next step up is what they call a ribbon burner. And that's kind of it's almost like a bar, and there's lots of little holes in it, all pushing gas. The great thing about a ribbon burner is you can get away with like 3 or 4 PSI because they have to have a force to air. So I will be upgrading to a ribbon burner at some point. So that's the forge. Anybody can build a forge. I think I built this thing with the refractory and the Kaowool for, I think it was like $100, maybe $120. So, you don't need to buy one of these. Go make yourself one. Learn how to weld if you don't know how to weld already. Okay, the next big tool you're gonna need is some kind of grinder. I started with a 4x36, I think, Porter cable grinder. Terrible grinder, worst grinder ever. The rest wouldn't stay still. Like, it really affected what I could do. So I decided, after I learned how to weld, that I would just go try and build one, because I saw some other people, some plans, and thought, wow, that's not really that hard. So what I did was go out and buy some square tube, and you can see the cuts. There's one here, one there, and a short one here. Squared them all up, okay, and then welded them together. You got to make sure these are nice and even. Okay, the one downside of doing this with pipe is that every one of these pipes has a little join, and I can feel the little ridge in here. So these, if I loosen this, these don't sit. You can see they move a little bit. And what I've done, just to make them move less, is I end up putting a bead of weld, or sometimes I put a washer to keep it nice and flat. And that works okay. I mean, once you tighten this down, it's solid and doesn't move. So I've gotten away with this. I've made some amazing knives on this thing, and I will continue to use it. So this was pretty easy to build. It's got a gas shock here. You just put a bolt. You can see how this works. There's just a little pivot here. This piece, you can see it's just a little pivot with a screw, and as you screw this down, okay, it raises this up, or you unscrew it and it lowers this, and this tracks your belt back and forth. So that's what this little thing is for. You got a motor here with a drive wheel. Now mine is direct to the motor. I don't have a pulley system or anything like that. Direct drive. I started, as far as motor, I started with a single phase 3,500 RPM motor, which is okay, but you're always at top speed. You cannot vary the speed. So one big advancement I did to this grinder is move this to a 3-phase motor with a VFD. You see the VFD is actually back there. This is just the little remote for it. Then you can dial this down whatever speed you want, and it's much easier when you're doing, you know, fine grinding or you're doing handles and you don't want this thing going at top speed. So let's talk about attachments. I actually just bought this platen here, the flat platen, just this piece, and then I just welded it onto a piece of, I bolted it onto a bar. This is where you're going to do most of your work. Another big addition that I would totally suggest is a glass platen. So you probably can't see it, but this piece right here is actually a piece of glass. When I first got this, I went with the steel platen, and within the first year, it was already dishing this. So it was not flat. I've had this one now for over a year, and it is still completely flat. So I think this was $20. Get yourself a glass platen. I made a rest. Okay, and I use this all the time. You'll see in my videos, a rest that just sits there, dirty. I do a lot of grinding on the rest. Some people can freehand it. I just don't seem to have the, I don't know, I'm getting old. I can't hold the blade steady against the belt. So I like to put it against the rest and just drag it back and forth across the rest. It's not using a jig or anything, but the rest helps a lot. Recently, I was moaning and groaning about not having a grinder that went horizontal. And you think, why do I need one that goes horizontal? Well, a lot of times you want to put the spine of your knife up against this. But that's really hard because you're like this, and sometimes you want to look at an angle to see. So it's really hard. So what I ended up making just recently is a rest that went this way. So now this rest is now at this angle, and I can just slap the blade against this and just do that. And I know I'm at a perfect 90 degrees from the platen. Other attachments you're going to want to get eventually, a small wheel attachment. You can put different little wheels in here for your belts, and that gives you just small radiuses. And this is really good for finger choils and just parts of a knife that have small radiuses. I bought this at OBM. I think it was 120 bucks or something with all the wheels. So here's another attachment that I use all the time. Again, you'll see it in my videos, is this surface grinding attachment. Also made this. A lot of plans online for this. This is a piece of aluminum that I've milled slots in, put these rare earth magnets in here so you can slap a blade on here, it sticks. And then this is just a special beam that you can get that runs through these guys, keeps it nice and even, and then this will make it just go up and down. So really simple design, but works great. And it's dead level to the platen, and this is just a 4-inch wheel. So use this all the time. This is great for leveling out your blades. Lastly is this 10-inch wheel. 10-inch? Yeah, I think it's a 10-inch wheel. I actually don't use this very often. I thought I would when I got it to do hollow grinds, but I didn't have an actual rest to use with it. And now that I just made that rest, I'll probably end up using this a little more. But great addition. If you're going to do hollow grinds, obviously you need a wheel. Some people use 8 inches, 10 inches, 12-inch wheels. But also great because this one is serrated. It hogs off metal really quick because the serrations really help you. So sometimes if I know I've got to do a lot of grinding, I might just use this wheel just to take off a large amount of material. So there we are, folks. That's getting started in knife making and the tools you need. I hope you got something out of this and you see how I started and what my progression was. Think about how you want to get started. If you have questions or anything, put them in the comments. If you got something out of this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.